Imagine getting threatened with eviction because you painted your front door red. Sound absurd, right? That's exactly what happened to Ronald Tate in a quiet Florida suburb. The HOA wanted him gone. They had no idea who he was. And when they finally found out, everything changed. This is the story of how one red door sparked a neighborhood revolution. Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Have you ever chosen something deeply meaningful to you? A color, a symbol, a tradition, only to be told it doesn't fit someone else's standards? That it's too different, too bold, too much? If you felt that, drop a comment, because Ronald Tate knows exactly what that's like. Ronald was 48 years old, a former Air Force engineer living a quiet life in a peaceful Florida suburb. His brick house was modest but well-maintained. The kind of home where every detail mattered because he'd worked hard to earn it. He kept the lawn trimmed, the driveway clean, the gutters clear. He was a neighbor who waved good morning and helped carry groceries when he saw someone struggling. One spring afternoon, Ronald decided to paint his front door. Not white, not beige, not any of the safe, invisible colors that blended into the background. He chose crimson red. Deep, bold, unmistakable. To anyone passing by, it was just a door. But to Ronald, it meant everything. His late father had always told him that red represented strength and courage. When life gets hard, son, you remember what red means. You stand tall. You don't fade. So Ronald painted that door red in his father's honor. It was his way of keeping that memory alive. His way of saying, I'm still standing. I'm still strong. He thought he was honoring his father. The HOA thought he was breaking rules. For days after he finished painting, Ronald found an envelope in his mailbox. Official letterhead. HOA seal. He opened it, expecting maybe a reminder about trash collection or a notice about the upcoming community meeting. Instead, he read, Violation notice. Your front door color violates community uniformity standards as outlined in Section 4.2 of the HOA bylaws. You are required to repaint your door using an approved neutral palette color within 14 days. Failure to comply will result in daily fines of $100, escalating to possible eviction proceedings. Ronald read it twice, then a third time. Eviction? Over a door color? He walked his neighborhood that evening, really looking at the houses around him. Beige house with navy blue shutters. Gray house with forest green trim. White house with black front door. Cream house with burgundy accents. Non-neutral colors everywhere. And he'd never seen a single violation notice on any of those doors. So why was his red door suddenly a problem? Ronald called the HOA office the next morning and requested a meeting with the board. Professional, respectful, just wanted to understand the policy and discuss it like reasonable adults. The response came via email. HOA board meetings are for members only. Policy is clearly stated in the bylaws. No exceptions will be made. Please comply with the notice or face penalties. No dialogue. No conversation. Just enforcement. Ronald sat at his kitchen table and felt something shift. This wasn't about uniformity. This wasn't about policy. Because if it were, every house with non-neutral colors would have gotten the same notice. But they hadn't. Neighbors started noticing too. Mrs. Chun, who lived 3 houses down with bright blue shutters, stopped Ronald on his evening walk. I've had these shutters for 6 years. Never got a letter. This doesn't feel right. Mr. Rodriguez, who had a yellow front door, said the same thing. 5 years. No notice. Why you? The uncomfortable truth started surfacing in whispered conversations. Ronald was one of 3 black families in a neighborhood of 60 homes, and his red door, bold, visible, unapologetic, had apparently crossed an invisible line. Others could bend the rules, but his difference was a problem. Ronald realized this wasn't about the color of his door. It was about the color of his skin. Ronald Tate hadn't spent 20 years in the Air Force without learning how to approach a problem strategically. He didn't get angry. He got methodical. He grabbed his camera and spent an entire Saturday walking the neighborhood. He photographed every single violation of the HOA's approved neutral palette. Blue doors, green shutters, red mailboxes, decorative wreaths in unapproved colors. garden gnomes that technically violated lawn ornament policies. 12 clear violations, all visible, all existing for months or years. 0 enforcement actions taken, except against his red door. Then he created a spreadsheet. Address, violation type, how long it had existed, whether the HOA had issued any notices. The data told a story that was impossible to ignore. Next, he pulled public records, HOA meeting minutes going back 5 years. The uniformity standards policy was rarely mentioned, almost never enforced. Until now, Ronald drafted letters. Not emotional, not accusatory, just factual. He included all his documentation, photos, spreadsheet, timeline, meeting minutes. He sent copies to 3 local news outlets, the City Council, and the Regional Fair Housing Advocacy Organization. His letter was simple. I am a homeowner being threatened with eviction for a door color, while others with similar violations face no consequences. I have documented selective enforcement. I am requesting transparency and equal treatment under HOA policy. Have you ever had approved discrimination that everyone could see but no one would officially acknowledge? Have you had to gather evidence just to be treated fairly? Drop a comment if you've been there, because Ronald shouldn't have had to do this. He sent the letters on a Tuesday. By Friday, everything changed. News vans pulled up to Ronald Street on Friday afternoon. Local reporters had received his documentation, and the story was exactly the kind of thing that made people pay attention. HOA threatens eviction over red door. Neighbors allege racial bias in enforcement. The HOA board immediately went into damage control mode. They issued a statement. We enforce all violations equally and without prejudice. This matter concerns adherence to established community standards and has nothing to do with race. But journalists don't stop at official statements. They dig, and when they started digging into who Ronald Tate actually was, the story exploded into something much bigger. Ronald wasn't just a homeowner. He wasn't just a former Air Force engineer with a red door and a grievance. He was a nationally recognized structural engineer who had helped develop Florida's hurricane building codes. After Hurricane Andrew devastated South Florida in 1992, killing dozens and causing billions in damage, the state completely overhauled its construction standards. Ronald was part of the expert team that revolutionized those codes. His work on wind load calculations, structural reinforcement requirements, and roofing standards literally saved lives in every hurricane that followed. The neighborhoods that survived Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Michael, they stood because of building codes that Ronald helped create. The very subdivision threatening to evict him? It was built in 2004 using the updated Florida Building Code, the code Ronald contributed to. Their roof stayed on during storms because of his expertise. The quiet man with the red door had literally kept their home standing. News outlets immediately updated their coverage. Engineer who helped rebuild Florida after Hurricane Andrew faces eviction over door color. National engineering associations issued statements supporting Ronald. The American Society of Civil Engineers called the HOA's actions disrespectful to a colleague who has dedicated his career to public safety. City officials started asking uncomfortable questions about the HOA's enforcement practices, and the mayor scheduled a press conference for Monday morning. The story went viral, and the HOA realized they had picked a fight with the wrong person. Monday morning, City Hall. The mayor stood at a podium with Ronald beside him. Ronald Tate has contributed more to this community's safety and well-being than most of us will in a lifetime, the mayor said, looking directly at the cameras. The treatment he has received from his homeowners association is not only disrespectful, it appears to be discriminatory. I am calling for a full investigation into their enforcement practices. The city attorney announced they were reviewing the case for potential fair housing violations. The HOA faced serious legal liability if the selective enforcement was proven, and Ronald's documentation made that pretty easy to prove. Within 48 hours, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. The violation notice? Withdrawn completely. The fines? Canceled. The eviction threat? Rescinded with a formal apology. But the board didn't stop there. Under intense public pressure and legal scrutiny, they announced sweeping changes. The restrictive color codes would be eliminated. Enforcement procedures would be transparent and documented. An independent review process would be established for all violation notices, and they issued a formal public apology, not just to Ronald, but to the entire community for allowing bias to influence their decisions. 2 board members resigned, acknowledging their role in what had happened. Ronald stood in his driveway that evening, looking at his red door, and gave a brief statement to the reporters who'd been following the story. I didn't do this for attention. I didn't do this to embarrass anyone. I did it because no one should be punished for honoring their heritage, their family, their identity, while others who look different get a pass. That's not policy. That's prejudice. And it has no place in any community. The red door stayed. So here's my question. Should HOAs have this much power over personal expression? Should they be able to dictate colors, symbols, and traditions? Tell us what you think in the comments, because this conversation matters. The week after the HOA's apology, something extraordinary began to happen. Neighbors started painting their doors. Red. All red. Mrs. Chun painted her door red. Mr. Rodriguez painted his red. The Johnsons, the Patels, the O'Connors. 1 door became 5, then 10, then 20. They weren't required to. They chose to. It started as solidarity with Ronald, a visible statement that what happened to him was wrong. But it became something more. It became neighbors claiming their own right to honor their heritage, their families, their identities. Red means different things in different cultures. For some, it's prosperity. For others, celebration. For many, it's strength and courage, just like Ronald's father taught him. The subdivision transformed from bland uniformity to vibrant diversity, and it was beautiful. Children asked their parents why everyone was painting doors red. Those questions led to conversations about discrimination, courage, and standing up for what's right. Dinner table discussions about heritage and pride. Lessons that would shape how those kids saw the world. Ronald became an unofficial neighborhood figure. Neighbors who'd never spoken to him before stopped by to introduce themselves. They asked about his engineering work. He shared stories about rebuilding Florida after Andrew, about the importance of strong foundations, about resilience in the face of destruction. The man they'd tried to silence became the voice bringing them together. The HOA, now under new leadership, created a diversity and inclusion committee. They established an annual neighborhood cultural celebration where every family could openly share their heritage. The community that had tried to enforce uniformity became a place that celebrated difference. 1 red door became a movement. 1 man's refusal to back down became a community's awakening. Here's the truth that Ronald's story teaches us. Sometimes what they try to erase is exactly what needs to be seen. Ronald's red door wasn't the problem. Their inability to see its meaning, to respect what it represented, to treat him equally was the problem. Discrimination always reveals more about those who enforce it than those who endure it. The HOA's selective enforcement exposed their bias. Ronald's response exposed their injustice. And his father's words? They proved true. Red does represent strength and courage. Ronald showed both when he refused to repaint that door, when he documented the discrimination, when he stood his ground, even when it would have been easier to just comply. Your heritage matters. Your story matters. Your expression of who you are and where you come from matters. Don't let anyone tell you it doesn't fit their standards. Don't let anyone make you smaller to make them comfortable. If this story inspired you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of people who refused to be erased, who stood their ground, who turned injustice into transformation. Share this video with someone who needs the courage to stand their ground, who's been told they're too much, too different, too bold. And drop a comment answering this. What color would you paint your door and why? I want to know what it would represent for you, because every door tells a story. They tried to evict Ronald Tate over a red door. Instead, he painted an entire neighborhood red with pride, solidarity, and the courage to be exactly who they are. The red door still stands. And so does Ronald. What color would your door be, and what would it represent? Tell your story, backhand index pointing down.